The number wasn't huge. That's what bothered me. At a school board meeting, everyone was arguing about a new athletic complex. Millions of dollars, big contracts, big promises, big speeches. But I wasn't looking at the million-dollar numbers. I was looking at a line item worth $18,742. One number, one expense, one payment that appeared 3 times in 6 months. So I raised my hand and asked a question. The board president rolled his eyes, then smiled, and said, "You're just a mom. Leave the accounting to professionals." People laughed. A few even nodded. I sat down. I didn't argue. I didn't yell. I didn't make a scene. 3 weeks later, the state audit report was released, and that same number was highlighted in red. By then, the board president wasn't laughing anymore. My name is Rachel Bennett, and this is what happened. I became involved with school meetings because of my daughter. Nothing dramatic. No political ambitions. No hidden agenda. I just wanted to understand where our district's money was going, because apparently that made me dangerous. I didn't know it yet. The district had announced a massive athletic expansion. New stadium lights, training facilities, renovated fields. Everyone seemed excited, because excitement often makes people stop asking questions. And that's usually when questions matter most. The school board president was Curtis Hale, confident, popular, well-connected, the kind of man who spoke as though disagreement was a personal inconvenience. That was my first warning. Before every meeting, budget packets were posted online. Most people never read them. I did. Page after page, line after line. Because numbers tell stories, if you're willing to listen. One evening, I noticed something strange. A consulting payment. $18,742. Then another. Same amount. Same vendor. Different month. Because exact duplicates are rare. Very rare. Then I found a third one. Same vendor. Same amount. Same description. Because once is normal. Twice is unusual. 3 times becomes a question. And I decided to ask it. The next board meeting was packed. Parents, teachers, administrators, local reporters. Then public comment began. I wasn't nervous. Not yet. Because I assumed there was a simple explanation. I was wrong. I walked to the microphone, opened my notes, then asked, "Can someone explain the repeated consulting payment listed under project management expenses?" Silence. Because the answer should have been easy. Curtis immediately looked annoyed. If you've ever asked a reasonable question and watched people react like you'd committed a crime, comment, "Answer the question." Curtis leaned back in his chair, then smiled. Not kindly. Then he said, "Mrs. Bennett, you're just a mom." Laughter. Then he continued, "Leave accounting to professionals." The room laughed again. I sat down, but something felt wrong. As the meeting ended, I noticed something. The superintendent, Dr. Elaine Foster. Because unlike everyone else, she wasn't laughing. She looked nervous. Actually nervous. Then our eyes met, and she immediately looked away. That was the moment I knew. The problem wasn't my question. The problem was the answer. I couldn't stop thinking about Dr. Elaine Foster, because everyone else laughed. She didn't. Everyone else looked amused. She looked worried. And worried people usually know something. That was my first clue. The next morning, I received an email. No name, no signature, no greeting. Just one sentence. "You're asking about the wrong account." My pulse jumped, because anonymous messages rarely appear unless someone is scared. Or guilty. The email should have included an attachment. I could see it. Broken file icon. Nothing downloadable. Because somebody tried sending evidence, then changed their mind. Or got interrupted. Either option was bad. I started researching the consulting company, Northridge Project Services. Because finding information should have been easy. It wasn't. No website, no public portfolio, almost no online footprint. For a company receiving district money, that was strange. Very strange. Then I found the business address, a small mailbox rental center. Not an office, not a consulting headquarters, a mailbox. Because million-dollar construction projects usually involve real companies, not postal boxes. That changed everything. That week I attended a PTA meeting. Nothing unusual. Until a teacher named Karen Wells approached me, quietly, nervously. Then she said, "Don't stop asking questions." My stomach tightened immediately, because she sounded frightened. Not supportive. Frightened. Karen told me something interesting. The district had recently cut classroom supply budgets. Teachers bought materials themselves. Students shared outdated textbooks. Construction consulting expenses kept increasing because priorities reveal values, and the numbers weren't matching the speeches. Karen didn't give me documents, didn't give me proof, but she gave me something else. A date. Specific. Precise. Then she said, "Check the March payment." March. The middle consulting payment. The same one I'd questioned publicly. I had somewhere to look. I reviewed every public record available. Meeting agendas, expense summaries, committee notes, because March should have contained major project activity, according to the payments. But it didn't. Nothing significant happened. No site work. No major planning. No construction milestone. Yet the consulting fee remained exactly the same. Again. Then I noticed something. Every time Northridge received a payment, another budget category quietly lost funding. Arts, technology, teacher development. One number appeared, another disappeared. Because now this wasn't just a bookkeeping mystery. It was a pattern. And patterns are harder to explain away than mistakes. I didn't know it yet. But someone inside the district was about to take a much bigger risk. 3 days later, another anonymous email arrived. No greeting, no signature, just 6 words. The audit already started. I stared at the screen, because nobody had publicly announced an audit. Yet someone clearly knew. They wanted me to know too. I started digging. Carefully. Quietly. Then I found a reference buried in a finance committee agenda. 1 sentence. Easy to miss. Pending compliance review. Because compliance reviews often become audits, and audits make nervous people even more nervous. Teacher Karen Wells approached me again. This time she looked exhausted. Actually exhausted? Then she whispered, "People are talking. Because rumors spread before investigations become public. Always." Then she added, "Administrators are scared." That changed everything. A week later, I attended another board meeting. Dr. Elaine Foster looked different. Paler, tense, distracted. Because she wasn't acting like someone hiding something. She was acting like someone trapped by something. Big difference. Then I noticed several board members disappear into a private executive session. Because Curtis usually loved transparency speeches, important conversations were happening behind closed doors, and that contradiction bothered me. A lot. That evening, Karen sent me a message. Not documents, not evidence, just a photograph. A blurry one, because sometimes clues are more powerful than proof. The image showed a restaurant receipt, 2 names visible, Curtis Hale, and someone connected to Northridge Project Services. I stared at the photo. Because business meetings happen. That's normal. But this wasn't listed anywhere. No disclosure, no public acknowledgement, no transparency. Then I checked meeting dates. The dinner happened 2 days before one of the consulting payments. That was not a good look. Then another clue appeared. A local reporter published a short article, buried deep inside the newspaper, because hardly anyone noticed it. The article mentioned Northridge's owner had previously worked with Curtis on another civic project years earlier. There it was. Connection. A real one. The repeated payments looked even stranger. Then something unexpected happened. Board member Melissa Grant called me, because board members weren't supposed to call parents directly. Then she quietly said, "You weren't wrong to ask." My pulse jumped, because that sentence carried weight. A lot of weight. Then Melissa told me the truth. Not everything. Just enough. The issue wasn't the amount. Not really. The issue was that nobody could clearly explain what Northridge actually delivered. Silence. No reports. No measurable outcomes. No detailed project summaries. Just invoices. And payments. I understood why Curtis mocked me publicly. Because the worst thing for people hiding weak answers is someone asking clear questions. And 3 days later, the audit findings became public. That changed everything. The audit report was released on a Thursday morning because nobody expected ordinary parents to read it. Most people wouldn't. Most people would wait for summaries, headlines, official statements. Not me. I downloaded all 93 pages and started reading. Page 47. There it was. The number. $18,742. Highlighted. Not once. 3 times. Because auditors rarely highlight things unless they want attention focused there. My simple question didn't seem so simple anymore. The report used careful language, professional language. But the meaning was obvious. The consulting payments lacked adequate documentation. No measurable deliverables, no detailed justification, no performance verification. Because that's exactly what Melissa hinted at. And now auditors were saying it publicly. By lunchtime, local reporters had the report. Because financial stories spread slowly. Unless schools are involved. Then parents start paying attention. Fast. That afternoon, the first headline appeared. Audit questions district consulting expenses. Curtis was suddenly having a very bad day. The board released a statement. Predictable. Carefully worded. Then Curtis appeared on local television. Because confident people love cameras. Until cameras start asking questions. Then they become much less enthusiastic. The reporter asked directly, "Can you explain the repeated consulting charges?" Simple question. The same question I'd asked. Because Curtis suddenly struggled to answer. Lots of words. No explanation. And viewers noticed. Then something unexpected happened. Superintendent Elaine Foster released her own statement. Separate from the board. Because administrators rarely separate themselves publicly. Then she said, procurement decisions were directed through board oversight. Silence. That sentence landed like a bomb. Responsibility shifted. The next board meeting was packed. Standing room only. Parents, teachers, reporters. Because nobody laughed this time. Nobody rolled their eyes. Nobody called anyone just a mom. The atmosphere had completely changed. Board member Melissa Grant requested speaking time. Then she looked directly at Curtis and said, several concerns were raised months ago. Months ago. Because that meant warnings existed. Warnings that were ignored. This wasn't about mistakes. It was about choices. Then the biggest surprise arrived. A motion, formal, public, immediate, independent review of all project contracts. Silence. Absolute silence. Then board members started voting. Curtis looked genuinely scared, because he finally understood something. The woman he mocked at a microphone wasn't his problem anymore. The audit was. And the audit wasn't finished. Most people thought the story was over after the audit. They were wrong. Because audits don't end stories. They start them. The independent review approved by the board began immediately. People who had ignored questions for months were being asked a lot more of them. The review team worked fast. Very fast. Then their preliminary findings became public. Several consulting invoices referenced project reports. Because nobody could find those reports. Not administrators, not board members, not auditors, not even the consulting company. That changed everything. The pressure became impossible to ignore. Parents demanded answers. Teachers demanded answers. Donors demanded answers. Then, on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, Curtis Hale announced his resignation. Silence. Because for months he acted untouchable. Now he couldn't even finish his term. The man who laughed at questions was running from them. At the next meeting, something happened that shocked me. People applauded. Not for a politician. Not for a board member. For ordinary parents. Parents who attended meetings, asked questions, read reports, paid attention. Because communities become stronger when people stop assuming someone else is watching. After the meeting, Karen Wells found me. She looked relieved. Actually relieved? Then she admitted something. The anonymous emails? They came from her. I stared at her. She smiled nervously, then said, I didn't know how else to help. Everything made sense. A week later, Superintendent Foster asked to meet me. Public coffee shop. Neutral ground. Because she looked different now. Lighter. less afraid. Then she said, "I should have spoken sooner." Silence. I appreciated the honesty, even if it arrived late. The district eventually adopted several transparency reforms: monthly contract disclosures, independent review procedures, public procurement summaries. Because systems matter more than personalities. The goal wasn't replacing one person, the goal was preventing the next one. That was the real victory. A local reporter interviewed me for a follow-up story, then asked, "How did you catch it?" Because people always expect a complicated answer, a genius answer, a secret answer. I simply smiled and told the truth. I read the budget. Silence. Then we both laughed. Because that was it. No conspiracy, no special access, no insider information. Just attention. Careful attention. The same thing Curtis dismissed when he called me just a mom. Today, whenever I walk into a school board meeting, nobody laughs anymore. Not because I'm important, because questions are. Interesting. Because this story was never really about me, it was about accountability, the right to ask, the responsibility to listen, and the danger of underestimating ordinary people. 3 weeks before the audit report came out, a board president rolled his eyes and told me I was just a mom. He thought the title made me small. What he forgot was something very simple. Moms read report cards, moms notice details, moms ask questions, and sometimes, all it takes to change everything is one number that doesn't make sense.